Hello there and welcome to the second video in the Introduction to Python Basics series. In this video we'll be talking about variables, data types, operators, and comparators. This is the first video that will actually be working in the IDLE and start, coding. So to start off, I guess the most important thing in Python, well probably not the most important, but very important, is a variable. A variable in Python is something that stores a value into memory. So a variable has a name, and an example might be x equals 7. So 7 is the value that's being stored in memory, and x is the name of that variable. So if we want to reference that, we'd have to type in the variable name. It's important to always give your variables descriptive names and names that actually describe what the variable is. When you're first starting out in Python, it's not extremely important, but as your codes get as your codes get larger and larger, it becomes more and more important to be descriptive with what you're doing. So for this one, I'm going to call it first underscore var, or variable. So now we can move on to print functions and comments. So a print function is going to print something to your Python console over here. And to print something, you just type in print with parentheses, and then in the parentheses you put what you want to print. In this case, I'll just go ahead and print the first variable that we have up there. Now to run your code, you come up here to run and hit run module, or again hit F5 on your keypad. And it prints 7. So that's print functions. Pretty simple. Print functions are helpful if you want to, display something for your user to see, or maybe you want to use a print function to see if something in your code is working properly. So a comment is a line that is not going to be run as code. So this is a comment. A comment starts off with the hashtag symbol, and then you can type in whatever you want. This is a comment. There we go. So this is a single line comment, and if you wanted to make multiple line comments, you could type out multiple single line comments, but that would eventually get really bothersome. So you might want to go ahead and write a multiple line comment. And the way you do that is by using triple quotes. I did that wrong, but okay. So you use two sets of triple quotes, and then inside these you can go ahead and write a multiple line comment. So this is a multi-line comment, and you can split it up into 2 lines. Now, this is not going to be run as code either, and it's really helpful if you have something longer to say and you don't want your code running off the screen over here. So that's comments. Again, really simple, and now we can move on to data types. The first data type we'll be talking about is integers. So integers are essentially any whole number. So 1, 35, 300, these are all integers. An integer cannot be a fraction, and you probably learned that in school. But if you haven't, there you go. I'm not sure what the exact definition of an integer is, but as far as I'll go here, just understand that they're whole numbers. So a float is any number that is not a whole number, or more specifically, a number that has a decimal point. So, or a decimal place. So 4.5 is a float, but 5.0 is also a float, just because it has a decimal point here. If you want to, say, check to see if a certain number that you don't know whether it's a float or an integer, you can use a Python function to determine which one it is. So in this example, I'll just say x equals 5. Now in a real example, you probably wouldn't know what it is, but in this case, I'm just going to set it equal to 5. Then we can say x equals type and then parentheses put x. Now, what I did here is I redefined what x is. So up here I said x equals 5, but up here x now equals whatever the data type is. So it's going to identify what data type x is. And then we can print x to the console to see what data type it is. And you can see it's being treated as an integer. But of course we could do 5.0 as well and see that it's being treated as a float. And then when we get down to strings, you can see that if you made this a string, it would work also. So now we can actually move to strings. So a string is a line of text that is enclosed within quotations or quotes. So string, or I can't do that. So string equals, and then you put quotes, and then you can say this is a string. Now you can use single quotes or you can use double quotes. So a reason you might use one or the other is, I guess single quotes really looks neater than just than double quotes, but that's just personal preference. You can also use double quotes like so. But this might also be helpful if you want to say that's a string and then use a small quotation mark here to for the, what do you call that, conjunction? Yeah. So you can enclose that single quote within double quotes. And that's just one example. You could also actually enclose, and this is why it's important, see, because you can't do this with single quotes because they sort of cancel each other out. So you could also, so that is a string, you can actually enclose double quotes within single quotes like that, and it doesn't break it up or anything. Another way you could actually do this right here, if you wanted to use single quotes, is you can add an escape character, which is the backslash. And this won't actually be printed if you decided to like print string. So if we print this, you won't actually see that backslash there. See? Yeah. So that's another way you could get around that. Now, say you wanted to have a multiple line string. Now, a way you would do that is say second string, or str as it's abbreviated, equals triple quotes again, just like we did up here for the multiple line comment. And then we can put this is a multi-line string. And that is going to be treated as a multiple line string. So if you printed this out, second underscore string, and it would print it out as a multiple line string. Now, this might be helpful for like paragraph text or something that you have a lot of, and oftentimes you might be importing data that is in string format. So yeah, so that's strings. We'll be covering more on strings in the next video, and be talking more about them later. So a Boolean is either true or false. So a Boolean value only has two values. For example, x equals true. Now make sure you always capitalize true and false, otherwise it won't work and it'll probably give you an error. So we could also say x equals false. And in just a minute, I'll show you how you can use comparators to generate a true or false Boolean value by using true and false statements. But I'll get to that in just a minute. So I'll go ahead and comment this out. And now we can move to operators. Now, operators are just like they are in math. We have addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. I don't know if I didn't say that already. Okay. So an example would be x equals 4 plus 5. So in other words, x equals 9. because that is the result of 4 plus 5. We could also say 4 plus first underscore variable, because first variable, as you'll remember, is a number that is stored in memory. So it's 4 plus 7, or 11. So we could also do 4 minus first variable, and if we wanted to multiply it by first variable, we used an asterisk. If we wanted to take 4 to the power of first variable, we just add another asterisk, and that is that will treat this as an exponent. There's one more that I'm going to talk about, and that is modulo. Modulo is going to take one number, divide it by another number, and then return a remainder from the division. So for modulo, or the percent sign, 2 will return 0. That's because 2 goes into 4 2 times with a remainder of 0. So if we print out x, you'll see that it returns 0. And this might be helpful later. You can use a conditional statement to see if a number is divisible by 0. So that's the operators that are built into Python. There are some more operators that you can import from the math module. So the math module is not built into Python, but is instead part of the Python libraries. So to get that module, you can come up here to the top and say import math, and that'll import the math module for you so that you can use it. So let's come back down here, and as an example, I'm going to use the square root function. So square root equals math dot square root, and then in parentheses we can put what we want to square root, or 9. And then you'll see if we print square root, we get 3 back. And there we go. So that's it for the operators. There's a lot more operators in the math module, and I'm sure there's documentation for all of those operators online, and I'm sure there's a way to find documentation within Python without actually going to the internet, that you can find documentation for these modules on. But I'm kind of vague on how to do that at the moment, so maybe I'll cover that in another video. So I'm going to comment this out and go down to comparators. Now, a comparator is just like in math, we have less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, and not equal to. And if you use this in like an expression, it'll generate a true or false answer. So let's just give an example. X equals 5 is greater than 6. Now this is going to return a false statement. So if we print X, it will give us false. So we could also do 5 is greater than or equal to 6. Equal to 6. We could say 5 is less than or equal to 6, which will return true. Or we could say 5 is equal to 6, or compare whether it is equal to 6. And notice that you have to use double equal sign to compare whether or not something is equal to another number, whereas you have to use a single equal sign to assign something to a variable. So that's important. Now we can also use the exclamation point and then an equal sign to compare whether something is not equal to. So this will actually return a true statement because 5 is not equal to 6. There we go. Now there's one more thing I wanted to cover before we move on to the next video, and I should have covered it just a minute ago, but that's how to convert between integers, floats, and strings. So I'll go ahead and do that right here. So say that we wanted to convert 5 to a float. So we could say x equals float of x. So this will turn it into a float. So it'll turn it into 5.0. So if we print x, and then print that to the console, you can see that it prints out 5.0. Now, we can also change a float to an integer. Now, what happens when you have a decimal place that is not 0? Well, we can say int of x, and it'll print whatever the nearest whole number is. So in other words, it's going to round this to the nearest whole number. So if we print that, it should print out. Well, that's what I thought it would do. Maybe I'm wrong. So I guess it just eliminates the decimal place. But that's that's how you convert from a float to an integer. I don't know exactly what's going on there. Maybe I'll look that up in just a minute. But we can also say convert this. This is a string. We can convert this string to, say, a float. And then we run that, and it prints out 6.5. And now if you say 6, this, I don't think this is actually going to work. No, you can't really convert words into a float. You can only use numbers in your string. But that is how you would convert from a string to a float. Now, you could also do the opposite and take 6.5 and convert it to a string using the str or string function. And when we print that out, it's again 6.5. Now, it doesn't have quotes over here, but it is still converting it to a string. So that's it for this video. If you have any questions, please leave those in the comments, and I'll try to keep up with those as best as I can. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.